Good morning. Well, we have the most beloved story that Jesus ever told as our passage today. And I want you to know that this story was told because Jesus was being questioned by Pharisees and scribes for the riffraff company he kept. It seemed Jesus had very low standards, and people didn't like that. In verse 1 of chapter 15, it says, "Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to him, and the Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling and saying, 'This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them.'" Jesus responds to this criticism by telling 3 stories back to back to back about lost things. A story about a lost sheep, lost coin, and lost sons. So I'm going to read that intro again to give you context, and then I'm going to pick up in verse 11 through 32. Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to him, and the Pharisees and scribes were grumbling and saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them." So he told them a parable. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me." So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout the country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare? But here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and I will go to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands.' So he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran, put his arms around him, kissed him. Then the son said to him, 'Father, I've sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his slaves, 'Quickly, bring out a robe, the best one. Put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And get the fatted calf and kill it. Let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate. And now his older son was in the field. And when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. He called out to one of the slaves, asked what was going on. He replied, 'Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf, because he has got him back safe and sound.' And then he became angry and refused to go in. His father came out and began to plead with him. But he answered his father, 'Listen, for all these years I have been working like a slave for you. I've never disobeyed your command, and yet you have never given me even a young goat, so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came back, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him.' Then the father said to him, 'Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice, because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found.'" So here's a story we can all relate to, because everyone's got family. Love them, annoyed by them, family. Maybe your family puts the fun in dysfunctional. Who knows? This is a story with a family with 2 sons. And this family has their own family drama. The youngest son, the baby of the family, acts incredibly selfish, like the whole world revolves around him. pretty much tells his old man that he wishes he were dead already. He asks for his family inheritance in advance. Give me what I have coming to me one day now. And he wants out of there. It breaks his father's heart, but he doesn't try to stop him. He lets him go, and he runs off, and he never looks back. Meanwhile, the older brother stays and tries to help his father soldier on. He keeps the family farm going with what they have, endures all the small town talk about his black sheep little brother. He watches his father's pain and heartache day after day, and he works extra hard to try in some way to fill the gap. The younger son's choices doesn't just impact him, it impacts the whole family. We all know this. Meanwhile, Jesus says the younger brother squanders his money on dissolute living. Wasn't that nice of Jesus to leave it all above the fray? Dissolute living. We know what that is. It's not rated PG. It's nothing to write home about. The shame, the absolute shame that it brought on this family, it was worse than death. And at some point, the party's over, the money runs out, and he has no one and nobody. He's homeless, he's hungry, he's living amongst the pigs in a foreign land. We might call this rock bottom. And so he's eating scraps of food, and it occurs to him that even his dad's servants have a better life than he does. And so he decides he's going to head home. Truthfully, I'm surprised he ever even had the guts to do that. Shame. To look someone in the eye that you have hurt, that you have wounded and disappointed, most of us would just keep running and never want to look back. But he does turn back. But the thing is, he's hungry. And desperation makes people do things. That's the thing that always irks me in this story. Do you notice it? It wasn't exactly remorse that made him turn home. It wasn't exactly him wanting to make amends that made him want to go back to his father's house. No, it was his empty belly. He was hungry. Doesn't that just irk you? It does me. Is he even really sorry? Is he even truly sorry for what he's done, or just sorry he's run out of money? He practices the speech that he's going to say to his father. He says, I will say, Father, I've sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands. And he heads back. And in the distance, his father sees him, runs to him like some sort of half-crazed fool. His son starts the rehearsed speech, Father, I've sinned against heaven and earth, but he doesn't get to finish the speech because his dad's hugging him and kissing him and calling to the servants to say, get a robe, get shoes on his feet, that only servants go barefoot, get the family ring back on his finger. We're going to kill a calf today because we're going to celebrate and throw a party. My son was lost and is found, was dead and now alive. We're going to celebrate. All those dashed dreams and disappointments, all that time, this father has never stopped hoping. This father has kept the porch light on and stared at every distance in the horizon, hoping, praying that he would see his son again. His son was lost and now is found, and we will celebrate. But the story doesn't end there, because the older son, where's he at that time? Well, he's working in the fields as he does, and he actually asked the help. What's going on back at the house? What's all the commotion? And they say, hey, your dad is throwing a party because your brother has come home. And he is furious. A party. He can't believe it. Where's the party for the kid who did everything right? Where's the party for the brother who worked hard every day? His dad kills a calf for the celebration when he never got a goat. He cannot believe it. His dad may be a pushover, but he is not. We call it principles, right? The older son standing out in the yard, he's listening to the celebrations going on inside, and he is fuming mad. Do you know that feeling? I sure do. It's not fair. I loved that phrase from my early childhood. It's not fair. He doesn't deserve it, does he? His dad may be a pushover, but he will not be. Isn't there supposed to be repercussions for our actions? He doesn't deserve that party, and he's not going in. He's not. So the father notices that his son isn't there, and he goes searching once again for a son. This time, it's his eldest child. And when he sees his dad, the older son just lets him have it. That son of yours. He doesn't even call him his brother. That son of yours. And the father says to him, I've always loved you. All that I have belongs to you. In fact, the Greek here literally means beloved boy. So the father is saying, my beloved boy, everything I have is yours. But you see, we had to celebrate because my other son was dead and now alive, was lost and now found. You see, this father has two sons, and he loves them both. Of the three stories Jesus tells about lost things, lost sheep, lost coin, lost sons, each of the first two stories ends literally word for word the same way. It says, when the shepherd finds the sheep, he calls his friends and neighbors and says, rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep. And when the woman finds her lost coin, she calls her friends and neighbors together and says, rejoice with me, because I have found my lost coin. But it's the third story, the last story, that Jesus chooses to end differently. Like all the other stories before it, it starts with a lost thing, a son, and ends with a celebration at being found. But this one, it's unfinished. It's unfinished, isn't it? Because the party's going on and the father's out in the yard begging the older son to join the celebration. He was lost and now found. He was dead and now alive. All that dad cares about is reunion, of coming home. He doesn't care how or when or why you get there. All he cares about is that you come back home. And the younger son is sitting at that welcome table again. He's shocked at this party, staring at the ring on his finger. He didn't expect any of this. And the dad is meanwhile out in the yard begging his other son just to come and join the party. Reunion. Join my celebration, son. And I suppose, after all these years, that the invitation to join the party still stands. Do you remember why Jesus told these stories to begin with? Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to Jesus, and the Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling and saying, this fellow welcomes sinners and tax collectors and eats with them. It reminds me of this little line. Now, you're welcome to use this little line the next time you hear it. If you ever hear someone who tells you they just don't go to church because it's full of hypocrites, please be sure to say, we have room for more at First Christian Church. Truly, feel free. So, I think the invitation still stands. So come on. Tax collectors, sinners, all you Pharisees and scribes, all you black sheep sons of the family and high and mighty daughters, come. Won't you come? There's laughter, there's joy, tears, the music's great, and there is always a seat for you at the table. Won't you come? Won't you? Amen.